Thank you for joining us for Inside Town Hall. I'm your host, Madeline Shields. Every few months, we gather several city councilors together to talk about what's going on in the city of Sioux Falls. And joining me today are Christine Erickson, Teresa Staley, Janet Brecky, and Kurt Sale. Thanks for joining us. Let's get right to it. We have a lot to discuss today. One of the topics on your list for discussion is the State Theater. What's going on with the State Theater? We've heard a lot about the State Theater. If you've grown up in Sioux Falls, there's a long history of the State Theater. What's going on right now?
Well, I'll start and let everybody chime in. The State Theater has been this amazing building downtown that has slowly started to fall apart, unfortunately. And so with the most recent gift from Mr. T. Denny Sanford with matching funds proposed from the city, it will open the facility and get it into operational. There's a lot of work to be done. There are a lot of public safety, health safety items that need to be addressed too. So when people do attend, it is safe for people to go into. But let's not forget that that doesn't mean the whole building will be done, and that the State Theater Group does have a plan moving forward to finish the balcony, the upstairs, possibly office space, but that will take some additional fundraising on their part for them to put some skin in the game.
Has there been fundraising efforts up to this point? Anyone?
Yes, there has. They've been meticulously working on it, for really the last decade. It really started with the roof about to fall in, and then that was the forming of the State Theater Group that actually got the funds to save that. And then there's been a chamber appeal drive. It was competing with a lot of other needs downtown in that decade. So it kind of got pushed to the back because it is expensive. It always is when you try to refurbish an older building. But it really is, it's just a palace, and it's going to be beautiful. And I think one of the fun things that hasn't really been talked about publicly that I'd like to share is they're going to be the first theater in town to have recliner seating. So you'll be going in, there'll be 200 chairs, 100 chairs, but where you have your own recliner. You got your cup holder and your both sides, and it's electric recliner, and that's happening around the country. And so this will be the first one that will have that in Sioux Falls.
I don't know if any of you have been in those recliners, but I always tend to fall asleep. That's a great strategy for the movie theaters, because then you have to go back and watch the movie again when you fall asleep the first time.
That's right.
So is there any proposed time that this will be completed, or the timeline?
Well, I have not seen a timeline to do it, because I think it's all dependent on, first off, whether or not these gifts happen, and that we get to vote again coming up on that. One of the things I want to make sure that the public understands is that the T. Denny Sanford gift and the city gift will be segregated funds. We will have oversight over our funds with the committee, and including city employees that are going to take care of that. It's for designated items, and it will be watched very closely. As these two gifts go forward to refurbish it, alongside of that, as Janet pointed out, there will be fundraising done by the State Theater to complete the project. They've come up with an additional $2.5 million on top of what has already been done to complete the facility. So when this is going to happen, I'm sure they're ready to go as fast as they can. They've been dealing with this for decades to do that. I actually was in that building when we burnt the building down next door, the Hanson building, and I think it was 1989. It's the last time I've been in there, and it was a little bit different at that time than it is today. So I'm excited for it. As Janet said, it's a jewel for downtown. I think it's going to be exciting for us.
Is this an economic development opportunity for the city of Sioux Falls to get this up and running? Is it going to help other businesses? Is it going to help downtown?
I think their motto is every day, all day. Or what is it? Every day, something for everyone, every day. And so it'll be running 7 days a week, and it will be one of the first venues to have daytime opportunities. So yes, the downtown community is very excited about that. The draw, increasing that foot traffic downtown, on a daily basis. And there will be opportunities through the contract with the city. There will be opportunities for 1,000 free passes a year for children of need, and the city can use it 3 times a year. And what was the third thing? There was another thing that they did. Field trips. They're going to make opportunities for field trips so that children could learn about the benefits of restoring and saving older structures.
Has there been some precedent set previously with the city helping to boost other, I guess, businesses or attractions to create, a better quality of life for citizens?
If I could address that, I think some of the concerns I've heard in the community, in addition to the excitement, and I know Councilor Brecky was very excited about having this thing move forward, but I think there's been some concern about giving tax dollars to a private entity. And especially this is coming out of the third penny entertainment tax. So we've had this discussion within the council as to the precedent it's going to be setting, and there was a request that we have that within the contract stating that this is a one-time thing because it's a historical venue. So we've got the 1.5 million coming out of the entertainment tax. Councilor Starr had wanted that to come out of the general fund reserve. I don't know that that's going to happen. But also, it was interesting when this came out of the gate, and I'm kind of going to be intermingling this with the capital program, but what I thought was interesting for the public was we had this great news that the mayor is listening to the concern about streets, and he's going to put, I believe, 83% of the capital plan into fixing the streets. So we've got that being attended to, and then we have this other issue of giving this money to a special venue that is privately owned. So I know it's kind of a little bit for everybody there within that program. And then one more thing that's come up as a result of this is that we asked at the meeting if they're going to serve alcohol. And we had another instance where the West Mall 6 was denied an alcohol license. And I think we're going to be revisiting that as well because they're planning to serve alcoholic beverages at this movie theater venue. So we want to make sure we're treating everybody fairly moving forward with that.
Matt, I'll just dovetail on a couple of things that Councilor Staley said. When it comes to the alcohol thing, I know there's been people now working on a comprehensive plan that can address all the theaters together so that we all have the same set of rules no matter what part of your town. If you're a theater, here's the rules you're going to have to follow. And that's been worked on since this has come up. I'm not sure where it's at in the process, but it's being worked on. Secondly, you talked about the economic impact of that. A study was done by the state theater people, and I don't have that in front of me, unfortunately, but it did talk about direct economic impact to downtown Sioux Falls and how those tax dollars would flow back. It's one of the reasons I voted for it, because I believe that it's going to certainly help drive the downtown as it is today. The third thing you asked about, is there any history of this happening before? The Shields Iceplex is a perfect example. The city gave $1.5 million. Steve Shields and his foundation gave $750,000. They raised an additional $5 million with Joe Zuger and his group to do that. That has been overwhelmingly a success for us in Sioux Falls. They're doing hockey right out there today, and it's July 12th, and they're playing hockey out there today, and it's full. Certainly, those type of things, I think we can work with the private sector, the nonprofits, to make these things happen, because they're probably not going to get there quick enough by themselves.
I guess you look at it as a public-private entity that works together, and I know that we've talked about some of those kind of items on this show in the past numerous times. Is this something that will continue to happen to, I guess, attract people to Sioux Falls, or even to create that economic development?
You know, it certainly can down the road, and I think that each council needs to take a look at each request case by case to make sure it makes sense, listen to our constituents to gauge their feedback. The feedback that I had received on this is, what are they going to do to get the whole building done? And so that has been my angle of working with the State Theater as well as the other folks, saying, what are you going to do to making sure that the whole building is done and that everyone has some sort of skin in the game with this particular project? And so if other projects come forward in the future, that's up for whoever are sitting in our seats to either fund or not fund those projects. And as you know, those seats can change every 4 years.
So if we look at this, the $1.5 million that the city's considering would be for structural work, the facade, the tuck pointing roofs, windows, health and safety codes. And then, but other needs that need to be done for the State Theater is the balcony, the basement, the organ that is in there. And is that portion what the State Theater Board or their group will fundraise for
Yes,
that?
yes.
Okay.
And they go kind of simultaneously, because if you're on that balcony area, in order to occupy that, you have to have bathrooms. So you can't occupy the seats until the restrooms are done. And so those two projects have to go hand in hand, or you can't have people up there if you don't have seats. And so there's some of those things that they will prioritize and begin really pushing the gas pedal down to fundraise for.
And there has been a little history like this before. The city of Sioux Falls did help the Carpenter building. When that was reconstructed, the city purchased a facade easement on that building, in that historical downtown. And so what they're doing with the tuck pointing and the health safety issues is there's a city benefit to that, to actually, preserving our downtown in a historic fashion. So there has been some history in doing that. I think there may be a couple more of facade easements downtown. I'm not sure. They pay the money and then it is spent, and then there's a requirement that they maintain it, and after they get it fixed up.
Okay. Well, let's move on. We have a proposed capital program. The capital program consists of two portions. It's the capital improvements program, which is called the CIP, and then there's the capital equipment program, which is other capital improvements. I guess it's land, street structures improvements, park improvements. What is going on with the capital improvement programs, and what do citizens need to know?
Well, we will be, as a council, diving in to those priorities that will be presented to the council as a whole. And as a council, we will be really digging into finding those priorities, making sure that we're in line and approve or amend if we see fit. There's a lot of energy towards streets. This weather was terrible on our streets this year, and so there's going to be a lot of energy and focus on infrastructure and maintaining the streets. It's a basic need and desire as you drive your vehicle around to have the streets be smooth.
And the mayor actually, in an Argus article that was put out in June, I believe it was June, he said that if you like streets being fixed, you're going to love it. If you want other amenities, you're not going to like it. And he's we don't know the details yet, but I think he's going to be cutting back on some of the park projects. And they're also putting out a call now to have private entities step up and help to fund some of those amenities that you may want in a parks department. But I will say, on my 3+ years on the council, I received many concerns about the potholes and the condition of our streets. And I know Pheasant Fest was here a year or so ago, and one of the comments they made was that Sioux Falls has horrible streets. So that is an economic driver, just to say this, we're proud of what we have here. We want you to have a pleasant experience when you're going from point A to point B, and putting money towards that, I think, is something the public wants us to be doing. So I say bravo to Mayor Tenhagen for putting that out there, and I know he's going to probably get a little slack from special interest groups because he's maybe cutting that flow off a little bit right now, but this is really what I think people want to see happen.
Is this all part of your budget preparations for when you're looking at the budget that will be considered in September?
Well, there's two separate programs. I mean, the CIP program is, again, it's your infrastructure, it's your capital expenses, your programs, your buildings, those kinds of things. But they kind of have different tracks, but ultimately you kind of approve them all together at the same time.
Well, and this, in the month of August, we're going to be sitting through hours of presentations. This is what happens, and we have each department come in and give us a snapshot of what they're proposing in the budget. Because I mean, it's a huge project.
Some of the things, some of the things with the capital, as Teresa has said, streets are a huge priority. Any survey that you do about the quality of life in Sioux Falls, streets is in the top 3 for everybody. So for us to reallocate some of the money, and actually all we're trying to do is catch up to where we've probably been in the past, because there have been other projects the city has had throughout the years that has kind of drained a little bit of that percentage-wise. So by the mayor coming out, I know that individually and collectively, this council has pushed him and his administration to make that a priority. And he's done that. A few of the things that the public might want to look at as they see these public documents is the projections that have been made by the finance department for going forward. A 4% growth for 2020, 4% growth for 2021, 5%, 5%, 5% after that. And I've questioned Director Pritchard in depth on how he came up with those projections. Because if our economy doesn't grow at that rate, we're going to be sitting here years from now, or different people are going to be sitting here dealing with a budget deficit. So we have to keep track of that every year as we've gone. We've been very fortunate in 2019, 2018 to exceed the projections of what's going on. Sioux Falls is still a dynamic, growing community, and that's why that sometimes the streets get a little bit behind, because they're trying to develop the new arterial streets for development and keep our core streets up at the same time. So it's a huge document, as the other counselors have said. If you sat on it, you'd certainly know that it was huge.
And you're talking about the budget.
Just the CIP that was just presented.
Well, you know, it's interesting that you talk about that because, you know, you go back to when the recession hit in 2008 and everybody talks about how, you know, Sioux Falls and this portion of the country was virtually untouched by that. But then later, as the farm economy starts to suffer, that's when Sioux Falls sees a decline on Main Street or on Phillips or wherever, all the shopping. Do you look back at that history and then try to determine going forward how to project? And I know, Janet, you had experience many years ago just with these particular topics. What have you seen over the years, and how does that help you with projecting going forward?
You know, obviously we rely heavily on our financial advisors for that, but they have done really good with their projecting over the years. If you look at how well they do, they've just performed very well with that. So they've kind of earned, you know, the trust with, you know, not only our council but councils of the past. But they are watching those things as well, and we get full financial reports every month, and so we're watching that sales tax. And I think there is a great deal of concern about the farm economy right now, and what happened with the soybean market, you know, internationally, and what's going on with the flood and the crops for this year. So, you know, we'll be watching it and poised to make adjustments. You can't really. I mean, it's always all based on projections. Sure. When a recession comes, you simply have to deal with it, because that's something you really can't project. Right. But when that happens, then you have to have an immediate response to it.
Well, and I do think that, you know, sometimes people forget how much the farm economy, just a little bit out of Sioux Falls, can really affect what goes on in the city of Sioux Falls. Mm-hmm.
I think you're right about that. We tend to do that. We're so kind of dynamic. But I would say this about this mayor as well. He is very regional in his thinking and in his planning. And so I think he's really tapped into that. He's very tuned into what's going on in the region.
Okay. Well, at this point, we're going to take a quick break. We have additional topics to talk about, and we will be back in just a moment.
30 seconds. It's the amount of time this public service announcement will last, and it's the amount of time on your commute that you may be slowed down in a cone zone. These city employees are working hard, and all they ask in return are two simple things.
Number 1, stay alert.
Number 2, slow down.
They all want to get home to their families too, and your patience is greatly appreciated. When you see amber flashing lights or orange traffic cones, stay alert and slow down.
Well, welcome back to Inside Town Hall, where we are visiting with City Councilor Christine Erickson, Teresa Staley, Janet Brecky, and Kurt Sale. Thanks for joining us. Let's talk a little bit about what would you like to see accomplished by the end of 2019?
You know, I think an item that has recently resurfaced for me when we had some executives in town launching a rideshare company. As they were downtown, they loved our downtown, and we were pointing at a few different apartments saying, hey, you could live in that apartment for this amount of money. And they were very shocked and amazed at our rent and our cost of living here. And the comment was made, well, if you had direct flights to San Francisco and some of these other larger cities, there's so many people that are looking to come to the Midwest or work remotely. And some of these companies are allowing people to work remotely all over the country. A couple of the people that were there did work remotely in Sioux Falls and traveled back and forth to Chicago, where we have a direct flight. So for me, I would love to start working with the airport authority and the administration and working on that collaboration to try to recruit some more direct flights in Sioux Falls. It's a workforce development, it's a recruitment, it's highlighting Sioux Falls and the region. And what's good for our region is good for Sioux Falls. It might just not always impact Sioux Falls, but collectively as a whole, it will. And this is a kind of a new item for me and an area I'd like to focus some time and energy on.
Well, don't you think a lot of people have family members, or maybe they grew up here and they're thinking, I'd like to come home, but
right,
it's just not feasible with their jobs, and so
right.
this maybe get people to come home.
Right, and the workforce is changing. People are working from home more and more now, and we've seen direct flights added to LA and Florida and Las Vegas and a few other places that. If we're able to do that, we've seen a city, West River, that just landed a new direct flight, and if it's an area that we can focus some time and energy on, I think it's going to be good for Sioux Falls.
Okay. And what are some of the other goals you'd like to accomplish? Anyone?
Well, I'll just talk about the short term. Before the end of the year, sometime this summer, hopefully, the events campus study group is going to be presenting their plan to the city council. There'll be several options in there. It surprised me when the survey came back. The number of people that have responded to the survey, of course, was above what they had projected. But we're going to be coming forward next week, which will probably be prior to this airing. There's going to be public 4 times when the public can come together, look at what we've got to this point, and can make their comments on that. So that's very exciting, that whole campus on how it works out there and what's going forward. And we spend a lot of our tax dollars out there. A lot of the city's money goes into out there. So I'm excited that that's going to be coming to a conclusion.
There's 3 things I want to mention. First of all, boulevard gardening is, I want to encourage people to do that now, and I actually submitted some flowers from my boulevard garden. That it's a wonderful thing. We have a great brochure through the city if you're interested. And Councilor Brecky and I are working on an ordinance to promote bees and butterflies in our city as well. So plant now. If you're never too late to start that garden. Secondly, I'm working with Mayor Tenhagen and Councilor Brecky has been supportive of this as well, to bring back the neighborhood summits. And we have a date now for October 5th. This would be for our neighborhood associations. I'm a big advocate of Neighborhood Watch. We're going to invite them to come. The council members hopefully will participate. And it's going to be on Saturday, October 5th. And we're working on a venue right now. But Mayor Huther was very big into this. And he did it for several years. So I'm grateful that Tenhagen was open to listening to my ideas. We're partnering up and we're going to be doing that. And then the third thing is Project SOS, which I know, Madeline, you are very involved with. I have a piece of legislation I'm going to be bringing forward. I don't want to go into too many details yet, but it's a way of our city partnering with the school district to help children with school supplies. And any way we can help these governmental entities to work together for the benefit of especially underprivileged people and children is a good thing. So those are some of my passions. And again, I'll be putting things on Facebook, my Facebook page, to give updates on all of these, and invite people to visit that and or contact any of us at any time.
One thing I just wanted to say about Project SOS, that is a program. If you're not familiar with it, it's through the banquet, and it started back in 1985 when they provided school supplies for children who live in poverty in our city, and it has grown, and the banquet runs that program. So,
and you're taking supplies starting, I believe, in August. You will be asking the public to help donate to that.
Right, schools, businesses, churches, all people of any group will collect school supplies. They donate them to the banquet. The banquet packs them in backpacks and distributes them. That distribution is on August 17th this year from Whittier Middle School.
And do you have that? What was that number of? Was it 3,000 or how many backpacks did you?
About 6,500 every year.
6,500. That's fabulous.
Yeah, to children living in poverty, and it's all local. They're all local children.
Absolutely fabulous.
So, yeah, it's a great program. So we'll look forward to finding out more about that. Can I go back to the boulevard gardening? I know some changes have been made to that over the years. So if people haven't kept up on it, it used to be that you could mow the boulevard but not plant in it. But that has changed.
Right, and I was instrumental as a citizen back in 2015 when we were rewriting this thing. So you can have it, something up to 36 inches in your boulevard garden. You're not supposed to have anything with thorns, anything rigid that would hurt somebody falling into it on their bike. But there's a huge plethora of things you can have. I've got lilies, I've got salvias, I got phlox, I got sedums. There's many things that will endure the chemicals that you throw upon them from snow removal. So it's exciting, more and more people are doing it. And again, planting things that the butterflies and the bees are attracted to is just a win-win for our city.
We have a couple of minutes. Who would like to go around and
I
just
would
one
like
more
to just
second?
make a pitch for the Levitt. If you haven't been down there yet, you absolutely have to. I think they had their biggest audience ever last night for Spoon Cat. It probably had to be close to 4,000 or 5,000. And they're running concerts Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and some Sundays. All summer long. There'll be 30 concerts total. Next year they will have 50 concerts. These are free concerts. You can bring your own food, your own beverage in, except for alcohol. You do need to buy your alcohol. If you're going to have alcohol, you need to buy it there. But otherwise, it's a free concert. You can, bring your whatever else you want in with you, and just come down and enjoy it. It's really, I think the people that have been going are finding it to be very exciting. It's an opportunity to spotlight local artists, as well as there are these groups that actually do the Levitt tour, and it's intended to really help with diversity and teach us. We see music as the universal language, and to bring us together. If we play well together, we'll work well together, and we'll live well together, and that's the concept behind it, Levitt. So I would encourage everyone to come down.
And where do people go to get information about when the concerts are going to be? Because they're not every night of the week.
They're not, and I think you can just Google it. If you go to Google the Levitt Sioux Falls, that will give you the list. They also have a brochure that I have seen. I have been to the concerts there, and one thing also, people were very concerned about parking. It seems like there was plenty of parking on the streets and in other lots that businesses have said you can park here, because it's usually in the evening after 5. And then you can rent a lawn chair, so you don't have to carry in a lawn chair to sit on. You can. I think it's $5 to rent for the evening.
And can I say one more thing in concern with neighborhood watches? Coming up in August, the first Tuesday, we have our National Night Out. So if you're involved in picnics, hopefully you'll have more council members coming, because we changed the meeting for that. And also just encouraging people to form these groups, because there is safety in numbers. And these associations across our town have done a fabulous job of connecting with one another. They do newsletters, picnics, all sorts of, they do potlucks, and so it's a great energy.
Well, that's our time, and I would like to thank all of our city councilors for joining us for Inside Town Hall. If you have any questions or concerns, or you want to get a hold of any of them, go to siouxfalls.org. Thanks for watching.